I don't care what anyone says. Family reunions mean something. Even if the food's bad, even if your weird uncle insists on singing karaoke, even if someone always brings a folding chair that collapses halfway through lunch, you show up. Because it's family. So when the annual invite didn't come in the mail this year, I knew it wasn't a mistake. Not after what happened last Thanksgiving. See? I spoke up. About things that had been swept under the rug for years. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just finally said, I'm tired of being treated like a side character in my own family. Apparently that was enough to get me voted off the island. At first I waited. I thought maybe they were running late with the invitations. Maybe the address they had for me was old. But then my cousin Carrie posted a group chat screenshot. All set for July 8th weekend. Everyone's confirmed. Everyone. Except me. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. I texted my mom. Did you know about the reunion? She responded, Oh, honey, I thought you wouldn't want to come this year. After how tense things got, I felt my throat tighten. They didn't even tell me. They just decided how I felt for me. Like always. I called my brother David. He paused before answering. I thought Mom told you. She did. Just now. He sighed. I'm not taking sides. That told me everything. The worst part? The reunion wasn't far. It was happening at Aunt Laurie's lake house, less than a 10-minute drive from where I lived. I could have walked, but I wasn't even considered. That night, I opened my laptop, not to cry, not to write a dramatic post, but to look at rentals near the lake. I scrolled past the cottages and cabins until one listing caught my eye. A full-size 2-story house right next door to Aunt Laurie's, with a wraparound porch, tall windows, and outdoor speakers. My heart beat faster. It was available for the exact weekend of the reunion. I booked it. 3 nights. Full access. No one could stop me. Over the next few days, I made a plan. If they didn't want to hear my voice at their table, fine, but they were still going to hear my story, and not the version they told themselves to feel better. The real one. I collected screenshots, old family photos, even printed a list of every time they asked me to show up, but never showed up for me. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cause a scene. I was going to show them who I was, loud enough for them to finally listen. The night before the reunion, I packed my bag like I was going to war. Bluetooth speakers, posters I printed, USB drives, laminated memories. If they thought I'd just sit at home and scroll through their party pictures in silence, they forgot who I was. Or maybe they never knew. I checked into the rental at 10 a.m. sharp on Saturday. I stood on the porch and looked across the trees. Laughter, coolers, matching t-shirts. The Blake family reunion was in full swing. And just like that, it was official. They didn't invite me, so I invited myself to the house next door. The air smelled like barbecue and sunscreen. I stood at the edge of the porch at my rental, clutching a mason jar of iced tea, listening to their laughter float through the pine trees. Carrie's voice, shrill and overexcited, rose above the rest. Everybody get over here. Picture time. I could almost see it, the whole family piling together in front of Aunt Laurie's blue shutters, smiling like everything was perfect, like no one had been cut out. And maybe that's what bothered me most. They didn't just leave me out. They smiled through it. I pulled out my phone and opened my carefully curated folder. Reunion files. Inside were screenshots, voice notes, even a short video I once took on Thanksgiving. The one where I finally said what no one wanted to hear. I'm not angry. I'm just done pretending this feels like family. They didn't know I'd saved it. Just like they didn't know I'd saved the group chat messages from years back. The one where Aunt Laurie called me too dramatic to invite to Nana's funeral. The one where Carrie told David, she always makes everything about her. I had the receipt, but this wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about reminding them what they did, what they said, and how I never forgot. At 1 p.m. the reunion playlist kicked off next door. Jason Mraz, Maroon 5, that overplayed Meghan Trainor song my aunt swore was girl empowerment. I smiled to myself, because they had no idea what was coming. I connected my Bluetooth speaker to the outdoor sound system at my rental, set the volume just high enough, and pressed play. It wasn't music, it was a voice recording, my voice, from Thanksgiving 7 months ago. You all act like I'm the problem. Because I stopped laughing when things weren't funny anymore. Because I stopped pretending like being ignored was a joke I should have just gotten over. There was silence for a second on both sides of the fence, then chatter, then chairs scraping. I didn't stop. The next track was a message from my old voicemail. Hey, it's Mom. Listen, I think it's better if you don't come this year. Things are still a little tense after last time. That was 2 Christmases ago. They didn't know I'd saved it. Carrie's voice rose next door. What the hell is that? Someone else. Is that her? I kept sipping my tea. I walked back inside and taped one of my laminated posters to the front window facing their party. It read, "Since I wasn't invited to the reunion, I decided to share some reunion-worthy memories of my own." A few minutes later, someone knocked on my front door. 3 hard taps. I didn't answer. They didn't invite me. They didn't get access to me now. Instead, I turned up the next clip. A list I'd recorded myself, of every event I attended over the years. Bridal showers I helped plan. Birthday parties I drove 2 hours for. Hospital visits I made, and all the times they said, "Your family, we love you." My voice cracked near the end of the recording. I let it. I knew what they were thinking. That I'd gone too far. That I was making a scene. But here's what they never understood. They made the scene. I just refused to be cut out of it anymore. Eventually, the knocking stopped. So did the musics next door. All I heard were murmurs. And one child, probably little Emma, asking, "Why is Auntie talking like that on the radio?" It broke my heart, because none of this was her fault. But silence is a pattern passed down, like tradition, and I wasn't letting it continue. I took a deep breath, opened my laptop, and pressed schedule post on a new video I'd edited the night before. A 3-minute compilation, photos of me at every family event. Then, one by one, I faded each photo into black with a caption. The year they left me out. The year I stayed quiet. The year I decided I wouldn't anymore. The final frame read, "I never stopped being family. They just stopped treating me like it." The post went live on my private account. No tags, no mentions. But I knew they'd see it. Sure enough, within 10 minutes, my phone buzzed. "Carrie, what is this? Are you seriously trying to ruin the reunion?" "David, can we please talk in person?" Even my mom. "This isn't the way to handle things. You're making people uncomfortable." I didn't respond to any of them. I just pressed play on the final audio clip through my speaker, the one I recorded that night in my car outside the Thanksgiving dinner I left early. Maybe they'll never admit what they did, but I'll never let them pretend it didn't happen. And maybe, just maybe, one day they'll learn that silence doesn't protect anyone. It just makes sure no one hears the ones they hurt. And they heard it. Every word. Because for once, they couldn't drown me out with barbecue smoke and matching t-shirts. They heard me. After that last message played through the speakers, the party next door fell quiet. No music, no laughter, just the low rustle of paper plates and awkward clearing of throats. I sat inside by the window, not watching but listening. The same way I had for years. Quiet, invisible, catching every word that wasn't meant for me, because they thought I didn't matter enough to hear it. Well, now they were hearing me. I didn't expect anyone to come over again. But by 3:45 p.m., there was another knock on the door. Not loud, not angry, just hesitant. I peeked out the window. David. He was standing there, shoulders low, sunglasses tucked into his shirt. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "I don't want to fight," he said. "I'm not fighting," I replied. "I'm explaining." He let out a breath. "You really made your point, did I?" He hesitated. "Look, It's not like we meant to exclude you. I crossed my arms. You didn't mean to. But you did. He looked down. Mom said it'd be better if we just gave things space. I laughed bitterly. You didn't give me space. You gave me silence. We stood there for a moment. Him uncomfortable. Me steady. Then he asked, why didn't you just talk to us instead of all this? You mean the speakers? The recordings? The truth? I paused. Because when I did talk, you all acted like I was making drama, like I was sensitive, emotional. He didn't argue. He couldn't, because he knew. I don't hate any of you, I said. But I'm done playing the part of the quiet one who's always fine with being last on the list. You were never last, he said quickly. I raised an eyebrow. Then what was I? He didn't answer. Instead, he sighed and looked back toward Aunt Laurie's yard. They're upset. I nodded. Good. He looked at me again, confused. I've been upset for years, I said. It's their turn to sit with it. He gave a tiny nod and walked back across the grass. He didn't slam the door behind him, but he didn't apologize either. Not yet. A few hours later, I heard Aunt Laurie's voice for the first time all day. She was yelling. Not at me, at Carrie. You knew she wasn't invited? Why didn't anyone say anything? Carrie snapped back. Because she's exhausting, Laurie. She makes everything a scene. I rolled my eyes. That was always the fallback, wasn't it? Call me too much, so they never had to admit they gave me too little. At sundown, I sat on the porch, watching the fireflies blink between the trees. The reunion had started to wind down. Kids were cranky, dads were packing up coolers, and Carrie still hadn't come over. But something else happened. Rachel, my younger cousin, the one who never said much, walked over with a plate of food. She held it out like an offering. I saved you a slice of peach cobbler, she said, shy. I blinked. You shouldn't have to eat alone, she added. I took the plate. Thank you. She looked at the speakers. That stuff you played. It was hard to hear. I know, I said softly. But it was true, she whispered. We sat together on the porch steps, legs stretched out, watching the pinks and golds melt behind the tree. I used to think you were just quiet, she said. But you were quieted. There's a difference. That hit harder than I expected. I nodded, eyes suddenly hot. Rachel didn't say much else. But that was okay. Some people show love in loud, clumsy ways. Some bring cobbler and sit beside you while the sun goes down. By the time night fell, I had taken down the speakers. I didn't need them anymore. They'd heard me. And more than that, some believed me. That was enough for today. Back inside, I looked at the mess. Printouts, screenshots, laminated quotes, old voicemail transcripts. It wasn't just revenge, it was history. A history they wanted to forget. But I refused to, because you don't get to choose which memories matter, just because they make you uncomfortable. If I had to carry them, then they had to hear them. Before bed, I posted one final message to my private account, a photo of the peach cobbler on a paper plate, sitting on my porch railing. Caption: sometimes healing looks like not being invited, and still showing up, and still being seen. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the problem. I felt like the truth. I woke up the next morning to a text from my mom. Can we talk before you leave the lake house? No apology, no acknowledgement. Just a carefully worded request. Typical. I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering over my phone, before setting it down. I wasn't going to be rushed. Not today. The rental house was quiet. My kind of quiet, not the kind where people ignore you, but the kind you earn after speaking your truth. I stepped out onto the wraparound porch with my coffee, watching as the reunion cleanup dragged on next door. The tables were still out. Folded chairs leaned against the side of the garage. A few unclaimed tote bags rested on the grass. It looked like the aftermath of a performance, like a stage after everyone's taken their bow. Except this time, I wasn't sitting in the audience. By mid-morning, more texts trickled in. From people I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, in-law, even an old friend of Natalie's who had married into the family and once told me, "You're not like them." And that's not a bad thing. They'd seen the video clips, the screenshots, the quote boards I posted. Some of them were confused, some uncomfortable, but some were moved. David texted again. I listened to the recordings. "I'm sorry. You were right. We weren't fair to you." I stared at the words longer than I meant to. It wasn't everything I needed, but it was more than I expected. I replied simply, "Thank you." Then I saw Rachel's comment on the peach cobbler photo. "You're the real one. Always have been. Proud to share a last name with you." My heart actually ached. In a good way. Around noon, there was a knock at my door again. Soft, almost nervous. I opened it, and this time, it was my mom. She stood there in her sun hat and church shoes like she wasn't part of the mess that left me off the guest list. "Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She sat down at the edge of the couch, like it wasn't familiar, like she hadn't helped pick it out years ago when I first moved out and got my own place. "I didn't think you'd go this far," she started. I stayed silent. She looked down at her hands. "You've always had such a big heart. I just didn't expect you to make everything so public." There it was. The real reason she came. Not because she was sorry, but because she was embarrassed. "You didn't expect me to speak," I said, voice calm. She looked at me. "I expected you to handle it differently." "You mean quietly," I corrected. She didn't deny it. "You know, I begged to be included in things for years," I said, steady. "Birthdays, holidays, even just dinners." My voice started to shake. And every time, I was met with silence, or excuses, or the classic, "We just assumed you were busy." She looked up, eyes glassy. "I never wanted to embarrass you," I said. "I wanted to be heard." My mom's lip trembled, and then she said something I hadn't heard from her in years. "I'm sorry." Not dramatic, not rehearsed, just quiet. "Real. I let other people decide how to treat you," she continued. "And I followed along because it was easier than standing up." Her eyes met mine. "That's not the kind of mother I wanted to be." I didn't say anything right away. Part of me wanted to hug her. Another part wanted to rewind time and fix every ache I carried from years of being overlooked, but I couldn't. All I could do was breathe through the moment. So I nodded. "Thank you for saying that," I whispered. We talked for another 20 minutes, about the reunion, about Rachel, about why I didn't just let it go. And for once, she listened. Really listened. When she left, she stood in the doorway and said, "I don't expect this to fix everything, but I hope it's a start." I nodded. It is. That evening, I packed up slowly. One speaker, the leftover peach cobbler, the laminated quote boards, tucked back into the suitcase like battle armor folded away after the war. I looked out at the lake one last time. They were all gone now. Just folding chairs and forgotten paper cups left behind. But the silence? It wasn't the same. It wasn't loaded or sharp. It was peaceful. Earned. Before I left, I taped one last thing to the porch post of the rental house. A small white sheet that read, "This time, I didn't ask to be included. I invited myself, and I told the truth." If that makes people uncomfortable, they should ask why they were comfortable erasing me in the first place. Then, I drove away. Not to disappear, but to return whole. Uninvited. Yes, but never again unseen. When I got home that evening, the first thing I did was unpack the posters. I laid them out on my kitchen table like artifacts. Photos, quotes, receipts, little pieces of a history no one wanted to remember but that I had lived through. I didn't hang them up. I didn't shred them either. I just sat with them. Because sometimes healing means holding the story in your hands and saying, "Yes, this happened, and I survived it." It wasn't until the next morning that I noticed the shift. The same family members who hadn't texted me in years were watching my stories, liking old photos, sending cautious, half-hearted DMs like, "Hey, just saw what happened. Hope you're okay." Didn't know it was that serious. Sorry if I was ever part of the problem. Are you really mad at all of us? I didn't respond. Not yet. Because this wasn't about being mad. This was about being erased. And I wasn't letting that go just because they suddenly felt guilty. By midweek, Rachel texted again. Just wanted you to know a few of us cousins have been talking about starting our own get-together next year. No exclusion. No Aunt Lori dictatorship. Just people who actually want to be there. I smiled at the screen. I'm in, I replied, but only if there's peach cobbler. She sent back a crying laugh emoji and a heart. Later that afternoon, I got a phone call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Uncle James, Lori's husband, the man who once said, "You know you're a little too sensitive for your own good." I didn't answer. But he left a voicemail. "Hi. I don't really know what to say. I heard what happened at the reunion. I guess I didn't realize how deep it ran. I hope you're doing okay. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I deleted it. Not out of spite, but because I had no interest in talking to people who only started listening after they got embarrassed. The truth is, when you stop shrinking yourself, some people will call it an attack, because your silence made them comfortable. And your honesty, it unsettles them. But I wasn't going back to being quiet. Not for them. Not for anyone. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. A real one. From my cousin Jenna in Vermont. The artist. The one who always stayed out of family drama. Inside was a watercolor painting. Simple. Beautiful. A girl standing under a tree, holding a megaphone, and under it, handwritten, "The ones who hear you will come closer. The ones who don't were never listening to begin with." I stared at it for a long time. I hung it up by the front door. That weekend, I sat down and wrote my own letter, but not to my family. To myself. It said, "You did something brave. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You simply told the truth. Out loud. And let it echo. And when it did, the right people heard it. Keep speaking. Not for them. For you." I folded it and placed it inside my journal. It's still there. Eventually, the noise died down. The family moved on, at least on the surface. I heard they were already planning the next reunion, this time smaller and more intimate. I wasn't invited again. But this time, I didn't care. I wasn't waiting on their table scraps of love, because I had already built my own table. And this time, I knew exactly who deserved a seat at it. One evening, as I was cleaning out the reunion files folder on my laptop, I paused over the audio file labeled Thanksgiving Confession. The one where my voice cracked, the one where I told the truth, shaking but sure. I didn't delete it. Instead, I renamed it, "The Day I Stopped Asking Permission." And that's exactly what it was. Because once you stop needing permission to exist in your own story, you become unstoppable. A week after I got home from the lake house, I received a message that stopped me cold. It was from Emma. Not little Emma, the child, but Emma's mom, my cousin Vanessa. The same Vanessa who once told me I was always too dramatic for family things. Her message said, "I watched the video you posted. I didn't know how badly we'd hurt you. Emma asked why you weren't at the reunion." I told her we forgot. But that wasn't true. We didn't forget. We excluded. "I'm sorry." I read it again. Slowly. Because that was different. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't damage control. It was the truth. And the truth had started to echo. Later that night, I walked past the framed painting Jenna had sent me. The one of the girl under the tree holding the megaphone. I ran my fingers along the bottom edge, reading her words again. "The ones who hear you will come close." I hadn't known if that would be true when I first spoke out. But it was. By now, my post had made its way into the family grapevine. And beyond, I'd gotten DMs from people I barely remembered, old classmates, neighbors, a few distant second cousins. Some messages were supportive, some were curious. But one, from a woman named Erica, hit the deepest. She wrote, "I saw your video because my niece follows you. I just want to say thank you. I was left out of a family event too. For years I thought I was the problem. But your voice helped me find mine. Please don't stop sharing." I teared up. Not because I wanted to be a spokesperson. Not because I needed the attention. But because someone else felt less alone. And that mattered more than anything. A few nights later, I got a phone call from Rachel. I picked up immediately. "Hey," she said, breathless. "You're not gonna believe this. Try me. Aunt Lori wants to do a video call with you. Says she wants to clear the air." I laughed. Now that the air isn't just hers to control, Rachel snorted. "Basically, did she say what?" Rachel paused. "She's losing control of the narrative. For once, people aren't just listening to her. They're remembering what you said. And now, they're starting to question things." I thought about it. A video call, a chance to face the person who, for years, led the silent campaign of cutting me out? I didn't know if I wanted that. But I did know one thing. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. I told Rachel I'd think about it, and that night, I stared at the soft glow of my laptop screen, wondering how it had come to this. Me, sitting alone in my kitchen, Aunt Lori, probably still planning brunches like they were power moves, and a family that was, for the first time, realizing how much I'd held back just to be included. But the truth is, it wasn't just about me anymore. The story had taken on a life of its own, in texts, in quiet kitchen conversations, in cousins reevaluating what they'd brushed off as not that deep. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to confront Aunt Lori for show. I was going to do what I'd done from the start. Tell the truth, calmly, clearly, completely, and let her squirm under the weight of her own silence. The next day, I told Rachel to set it up. "Let's talk," I said. "No more behind-the-back group chats. No more passive-aggressive photos posted with fake captions. If she wants to talk to me, she'll do it where I can see her face." Rachel scheduled it for Saturday. I'll be honest, when Saturday came, I was nervous. Not scared. Just grounded. The kind of nerves you get when you know you're about to say the one thing no one ever had the guts to say out loud. I wore a simple black shirt. No makeup, no jewelry, just me. Unfiltered, undeniable. At 2 p.m. sharp, the Zoom screen blinked open, and there she was, Aunt Laura, in her carefully staged living room, wearing pearls of course. She looked surprised I'd joined with my camera on. I wasn't playing games. "Hello," she said. Cool and polite. "Hi." She glanced off screen, like someone was feeding her lines. Then she smiled. "I just wanted to say, I didn't realize how hurt you were. If I had, I never would have let things go that far." I didn't blink. "You knew," I said. "You just didn't care until it became public." She stiffened. "I think you're being unfair," she replied. I leaned forward slightly. "No, I'm being accurate. You were the one who told Mom to leave me off the reunion list. You were the one who told everyone I was too much drama. You let that story live for years." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Because what could she say? I hadn't exaggerated. I hadn't lied. I had proof. Screenshot. Recordings. And now, a voice. "You can keep pretending you didn't mean it," I said. "But the truth doesn't need your permission anymore." She looked like she wanted to hang up. But I kept going. "I don't need you to like me. I don't even need you to apologize. I just need you to never make anyone else feel invisible again." The silence that followed, it was the loudest she'd ever been. The call with Aunt Lori ended not with fireworks, but with a screen going black. She didn't yell. She didn't deny. She just disconnected. And it was the most honest thing she could have done. Because people like her only know how to speak when they're in control of the room. But this time, I had the floor. And I didn't raise my voice. I just held my ground. After the call, I didn't feel drained. I felt light, like I'd set something down I'd been carrying for way too long. Not for her. For me. The next few days, something surprising started happening. People began reaching out, not with apologies, but with invitations. Real ones. Would you want to come to Friendsgiving this year? We're doing a small family brunch next month. Only the people who actually care. We'd love to have you. We're planning a cousin weekend. No drama, no hierarchy, just the ones who listen. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't hesitate. I said yes, not because I needed their approval, but because I deserved to be part of something where I wasn't treated like an afterthought. Rachel called a few days later. Guess what? She said, her voice practically bouncing. We're hosting our own version of the reunion next year. I smiled. Oh? No more matching shirts. No more assigned seats. No Aunt Lori approved playlists. Just whoever wants to be there shows up. I felt my chest loosen. And you're helping me plan it, she added. That made me laugh. Peach cobbler or no deal, I joked. Already penciled in, she said. The next weekend, I hosted something of my own. I invited a few cousins, a few old friends, even Vanessa and Emma, who showed up with flowers and an awkward but genuine, "Thanks for letting us come." I didn't make it formal. No speech, no icebreakers, just food, music, and people who cared enough to come on purpose. And it was the best night I'd had in years. At one point, Rachel raised her glass. "I just want to say," she said, looking at me, "thank you for being the brave one, for forcing us to see what we didn't want to. You changed something." I shook my head. I didn't change anything. I just stopped pretending everything was okay. But I knew what she meant. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is say it out loud, and then stay. After everyone left, I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the clink of glassware and the faint hum of music still playing in the background. And for the first time, I realized something. I didn't just rent a house next door to be petty. I claimed space. I made myself visible in a family that had made invisibility feel like a rule, and that changed the rules. A week later, I saw Aunt Lori had posted something on Facebook, a photo of her and a few select family members at brunch. The caption read, "We keep it small, we keep it respectful." No names, no tags, just control. But I didn't feel the usual punch in my gut, because this time, I knew it wasn't about me. She hadn't changed. But I had, and that was enough. That same day, I posted a picture of our backyard dinner, lights strung over the patio, laughter frozen mid-motion, Emma asleep on the couch, with a paper plate still in her lap. The caption was simple: "This is what love looks like when you stop begging for it and start inviting it in." It got more likes than anything I'd ever posted. But more than that, it got messages from people who said, "I thought I was alone. I didn't know you could take your power back like this. You made me feel seen." And I realized that little house I rented for the reunion, it wasn't just revenge. It was a beacon. Because when people silence you, they expect you to go away. But I didn't. I rented the house next door. I told the truth, and I let the right people find me. It's been 6 months since the family reunion that never had my name on the invite list. 6 months since I pulled up to that lake house, unpacked my suitcase of receipts, and set up speakers on the porch, like truth was something I could finally broadcast. And maybe it was, because they heard me, loud, clear, unapologetically. I didn't do it to start a war. I did it because I was done with peace that only existed when I stayed small. Because keeping the peace isn't peace when you're the only one silencing yourself to keep it. Since then, things haven't been perfect. Aunt Lori still throws her polished little brunch. She still posts curated family moments like she's hosting a talk show. But something's different. The room is smaller now, because more people are choosing truth over tradition. More cousins are choosing each other over politeness. And me, I'm not on the outside anymore. I'm exactly where I built my place to be. I got a message from a girl I barely knew. Third cousin, I think. She wrote, "I used to think you were just quiet, but now I realize you were tired of speaking to people who only listen to respond." That line stayed with me. Because for so long, I thought maybe I was the problem, too sensitive, Too intense. Too not fun. But now I know I wasn't too anything. They were too comfortable pretending I didn't matter. Last month, we had another get-together. Not a reunion. Something better. A gathering of people who had learned how to show up without expectation. There was no sign-in sheet. No RSVP. Just folding chairs, food everyone brought from home, and laughter that didn't sound rehearsed. Rachel made a speech. And this time, I wasn't watching from a window. I was sitting at the center table, with Emma curled beside me, and Jenna passing out homemade cookies. Rachel raised her glass and said, "To the truth tellers, the ones who don't wait to be invited anymore, the ones who build tables, not walls." Everyone clinked their glasses. I looked around, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a guest in my own story. I felt like the host. There's a photo from that night I keep on my fridge now. We're all crowded in, arms slung around shoulders, plates piled high with food. Someone mid-laugh with their head thrown back. You can't stage moments like that. You can only earn them. Sometimes, I still think about that first day, pulling up to the lake house, the sound of Aunt Laurie's playlist next door, knowing full well I wasn't wanted. And now I smile. Because they didn't want me there. But I came anyway. And I didn't just come to watch. I came to be heard. If you ask them now, they might still say I was dramatic, too bold, too disruptive. But that's fine. Because I didn't do it to change them. I did it to reclaim me. And I did. These days, I don't knock to be let into rooms that ignore me. I build rooms of my own. I don't whisper to keep others comfortable. I speak so the ones who need to hear me can find me. And I don't ask for a seat at their table. Because I've got one now. One I built. From truth. From courage. From everything they told me I was too much of. Let them keep their curated brunches. Let them keep their filtered stories. I'll keep my voice, and the people who love me for using